What if you accidentally traveled back in time, ruined your parents' first meeting, and now have less than a week to make them fall in love? Or you'll literally erase yourself from existence. Welcome to Flickwit. I'm Jules, and today we are unpacking a cinematic masterpiece that completely redefined the sci-fi genre. Grab your drink, settle in, and let's dissect the beautiful, hilarious, and emotionally high-stakes temporal paradox of Back to the Future. It's 1985 in the sleepy suburban town of Hill Valley, California. We're introduced to our protagonist, Marty McFly. Marty is the ultimate 80s cool kid. He skateboards by holding onto the back of moving cars, plays a mean electric guitar, and has a beautiful, supportive girlfriend named Jennifer. But beneath that effortless, denim-clad swagger, Marty is carrying the heavy, suffocating weight of generational failure.
Good job.
Terrible.
Save the clock tower!
When Marty walks into his house, the atmosphere is utterly depressing. His family is a masterclass in mediocrity. His older siblings are going nowhere. His mother, Lorraine, is a cynical, overweight, deeply unhappy woman who drinks vodka out of a teacup and constantly preaches a conservative, hypocritical narrative about how girls in her day never chased boys. But the absolute emotional anchor of this tragedy is his father, George McFly. George is the ultimate pushover. He is a weak, spineless, defeated man who still gets bullied by his high school tormentor, Biff Tannen. Biff literally crashes George's car, walks into his house, steals his food, and aggressively bullies George into doing his office reports for him. George just takes it, offering a pathetic, nervous laugh. Marty watches this completely horrified. His deepest, darkest fear is that he is genetically destined to become just like his father, a loser.
Yeah, but I figured since they weren't due till...
Hello?
Late that night at the desolate Twin Pines Mall parking lot, Doc Brown calls Marty out to film his latest, greatest invention. Out of the back of a smoky step van reverses a sleek, stainless steel DeLorean DMC-12. It's not just a car, it is a meticulously crafted time machine. Doc brilliantly explains the mechanics. You turn on the time circuits, input your destination date, accelerate the car to exactly 88 miles per hour, and the flux capacitor, the glowing Y-shaped heart of the machine, punches a hole directly through the space-time continuum. The machine requires a nuclear reaction to generate the 1.21 gigawatts of electricity needed for the jump. To get that power, Doc did something incredibly reckless. He stole weapons-grade plutonium from a group of heavily armed Libyan terrorists. Just as Doc is celebrating his monumental triumph, a rusty Volkswagen van screeches into the parking lot. The terrorists have found him. What follows is a visceral, terrifying shift in tone. This isn't a fun sci-fi romp right now. This is a brutal execution. The terrorists open fire with an AK-47, mercilessly gunning Doc Brown down in the parking lot. Marty screams, completely paralyzed with grief and terror. The terrorists turn their guns on him. In an absolute blind panic, Marty dives into the DeLorean. He isn't trying to time travel, he is just trying to survive. He floors the accelerator, shifting gears as the terrorists pursue him. The speedometer climbs, 70, 80. The Libyans fire a rocket launcher. At the exact millisecond before the rocket makes contact, the speedometer hits 88 miles per hour. Marty violently crashes into a scarecrow in the middle of a dark, empty farmland. He thinks it's a nightmare. But as the sun rises, he walks back into the town of Hill Valley, and the visual whiplash is absolutely stunning. The rundown, graffiti-covered town square of 1985 is gone. In its place is a pristine, pastel-colored, aggressively optimistic 1950s utopia. Marty realizes with absolute horrifying clarity he has traveled 30 years into the past, to November 5th, 1955. Desperate to figure out how to get home, Marty wanders into a local diner. Here, the temporal nightmare truly begins. He sees a young, teenage version of his father, George. George is just as pathetic and awkward in 1955 as he is in 1985. He is being brutally bullied by a young, arrogant Biff Tannen. Marty watches his father capitulate, feeling a wave of secondhand embarrassment. When George leaves the diner on a bicycle, Marty follows him. He finds George up in a tree with a pair of binoculars, acting as a literal peeping Tom, spying on a girl getting undressed. That girl is Lorraine, Marty's mother. Suddenly, George loses his balance and plummets from the tree, falling directly into the path of an oncoming car driven by Lorraine's father. This is the exact historical moment where George and Lorraine were supposed to meet. Lorraine's father was supposed to hit George. Lorraine was supposed to nurse him back to health, feel sorry for him, and fall in love. It's the Florence Nightingale effect. The timeline violently fractures. She feels intense, romantic infatuation for the mysterious boy who saved his life. She looks at the label on his futuristic 1980s underwear and assumes his name is Calvin Klein. It is a hilariously dark, deeply uncomfortable, edible nightmare. His own mother is aggressively flirting with him.
Yeah, I don't know.
And he can sleep in my room.
I gotta go.
Marty escapes the house and manages to track down the 1955 version of Doc Brown. This Doc is younger, slightly more manic, and highly skeptical. He tells Doc exactly how he came up with the idea for the flux capacitor. Slipping on a toilet, hitting his head on the sink, and drawing the schematic. Doc's eyes widen in absolute awe. They retrieve the DeLorean, but they face a catastrophic, seemingly insurmountable problem. The time machine is out of plutonium. In 1955, plutonium is completely inaccessible. Doc frantically explains that the only thing capable of generating 1.21 gigawatts of power is a literal bolt of lightning. But you can't predict where or when lightning will strike. Except Marty can. Marty pulls out a flyer he brought from 1985, a historical society flyer attempting to save the town's famous clock tower, which was struck by lightning and frozen in time on this exact weekend, November 12, 1955, at precisely 10:04 p.m. It is a brilliant, airtight piece of screenwriting. They have a time, a place, and a method. But there is a secondary, far more terrifying ticking clock. Marty shows Doc a photograph of himself with his brother and sister, but the image is physically altering. His brother's head has completely vanished from the photo. The ripple effect of Marty saving George is catching up to him. Because George and Lorraine haven't fallen in love, their children will never be born. They are being systematically erased from reality. Marty has exactly 1 week to force his teenage parents to fall in love, or he will literally cease to exist.
Looks brand new.
Now remember, according to my theory, you interfered with your parents' first meeting.
Marty has to play matchmaker for his own parents, but George is fundamentally incapable of romantic interaction. He is crippled by fear and self-doubt. Marty tries everything. He dresses up in a yellow radiation suit, plays loud Van Halen music into George's ears, and claims to be Darth Vader from the planet Vulcan, threatening to melt George's brain if he doesn't ask Lorraine to the upcoming Enchantment Under the Sea school dance. George reluctantly agrees, but the plan falls apart because Lorraine doesn't want George. She wants Marty.
I don't know, but I'm gonna find out.
So Marty devises a desperate, cinematic master plan for the night of the dance. Marty will take Lorraine in his car. He will pretend to aggressively make a move on her. George will heroically open the door, punch Marty in the face, rescue Lorraine, and secure her heart forever. The night of the dance arrives. The tension is palpable. Marty sits in the car with Lorraine. But the plan goes horribly wrong when Biff Tannen violently rips the car door open. Biff drags Marty out, tosses him into the trunk of another car, and forces himself on Lorraine. George walks up to the car and assumes Marty is inside. He aggressively swings the door open. He finds Biff, the giant, terrifying bully who has tormented him his entire life. George freezes. His entire life has been defined by capitulation. Grabs George by the arm and twists it violently, bringing George to his knees. Lorraine is crying, begging Biff to stop. George looks at Lorraine. He sees her fear. He looks at his own trembling, pinned arm. The entire timeline shifts on its axis. George didn't just knock out a bully, he shattered his own cycle of cowardice. Lorraine looks at George, completely mesmerized. The Florence Nightingale effect wasn't needed. Pure, unadulterated confidence won the day. But the paradox isn't completely solved. Inside the dance hall, the band stops playing because the guitarist injured his hand freeing Marty from the trunk. Marty is on stage trying to play the guitar, but he literally starts fading away. His hand becomes transparent. He collapses to the floor, gasping for air. His existence is slipping into the void. At the absolute last second, George leans in, takes Lorraine in his arms, and kisses her. It is a profound, beautiful moment. The photograph in Marty's pocket instantly restores. His existence is cemented. That leaves the 1950s audience completely bewildered. He tells them, I guess you guys aren't ready for that yet, but your kids are gonna love it.
He sets fire to the living room rug. Go easy on him.
Marty sprints from the school to the town square. It is raining heavily. The climax is an absolute masterclass in escalating tension. Everything that can go wrong goes wrong. The engine of the DeLorean stalls. Doc Brown slips on the roof of the clock tower, accidentally unplugging the massive power cable. The wind is howling. The lightning is minutes away. Doc is hanging precariously from the clock face, frantically trying to reconnect the heavy industrial cables. Down on the street, Marty manages to start the DeLorean. He backs up to the exact starting line they calculated. The alarm clock rings. Marty floors the accelerator. The tires squeal. The car rockets toward the wire. Up on the roof, Doc makes a desperate, swinging leap, slamming the two cable ends together just as the massive bolt of lightning strikes the clock tower. Marty crashes back into 1985, but he arrives 10 minutes too late to save Doc. He runs to the mall parking lot, his heart pounding in his chest, only to watch the entire tragedy replay itself. The terrorists shoot Doc. Marty weeps over his friend's body. But wait, Doc opens his eyes and sits up. He unzips his radiation suit to reveal a bulletproof vest. Doc taped together a warning letter Marty had given him in 1955. Doc realized that his life was worth the risk.
Take care.
You too.
Right.
Marty goes home, exhausted, believing his nightmare is finally over. He wakes up the next morning and walks into his living room, completely unprepared for the paradigm shift. The dingy, depressing house is now pristine and beautifully decorated. And then the ultimate payoff walks through the door. George McFly. But this isn't the hunched, nervous coward from yesterday. And outside, polishing George's BMW, is Biff Tannen. Marty stares in absolute joyful disbelief.
Yes!
If there is one profound, enduring lesson to extract from the brilliant architecture of Back to the Future, It is that our destiny is not a rigid, pre-written script bound by our circumstances or our parents' failures. The film masterfully illustrates that the future is incredibly fragile, completely unwritten, and entirely dictated by the small, terrifying choices we make in the present. George McFly's entire life was completely transformed, not by magic and not by time travel, but by a single agonizing moment where he decided to close his fist and stand up for himself. It teaches us that you do not have to be a victim of your own history. With a little bit of courage, you have the absolute power to rewrite your own legacy. As always, stay curious, stay clever, and I'll see you in the next story. This is Jules from Flickwit, signing off. Don't forget to subscribe. Thank you, guys.